And we're live again. Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Just a technical error on my part. Okay, so good. We're live. We're back. Sorry about that. No more technical malfunctions. We're just having what was starting to be a really good discussion on Gaza and the assault on Gaza happening right now. And so anyone who's just joining again, I'm Dan Cohen, correspondent with Behind the Headlines in Washington, D.C. Made the documentary Killing Gaza about 2014, Israeli attack on Gaza and the aftermath. And so I have 3 Palestinian guests who are from Gaza and can really shed a lot of light on what it's like to be there. And Walaa was just talking first about kind of the bombardment of Gaza, and then kind of discussing the occupation itself. So, Walaa, sorry, you were saying before I interrupted you.
I was just saying that this has been going for the past 73 years, and actually on daily basis. But from time to time, we tend to witness a huge escalation, but not as huge as this time. This time, we look at the stolen lands from 1948 and about West Bank and Gaza and Jerusalem, all at the same time. Like from Haifa, as we speak right now, a friend says that too many people are standing on the streets of Haifa, Palestinian people in the streets of Haifa, and being attacked by both the policemen and the settlers. This is really scary because people of the 48 cities, or people inside of what's being called Israel, even if we find a solution out of this situation, there will be a huge risk because of the current situation that has been going on, as you can see in the news or in social media. Because as we said when we started, there is a minimum, or at least no, or even no coverage, or what really has been going on. So Akko, Yafa, Aled, Ramla, Haifa, Kufr Qonna, Kufr Hanna, West Bank, the borders between Lebanon and Palestine, or what's being called Israel, the borders between us and Jordan, everything is on fire. And this is really new. I am 33 years old and I haven't witnessed such an event before. We don't know where this is going on, but as we all know, as the whole world know, that Gaza has a very special situation. Gaza Strip has been under siege, extreme siege. It has been a huge prison for more than 15 years now. So we already know that they have shortage in drugs, in electricity, and actually in everything. And during the past 4 days, the shortage became extreme. So we are looking at a humanitarian crisis. We don't know where we are going. And if you look closely at the buildings that the Israeli defense forces have bombed, they are buildings related to press, related to internet companies, related to mobile phone networks. So they are trying to make Gaza go into a complete blackout, so no one would know what's really going on. You can stop an event while it's going, but after it happens, all what you can do is just cry. I don't want us to reach this point. We don't want to reach a point where we just stand up, the whole world, for a silent moment on the souls of innocent people in Gaza. Just take 1 minute from your time and just look on the news with their eyes. Don't judge the situation. Don't try to judge who's who's right and who's wrong. Just look at the numbers. Look at the people in the street. Look at the people who are killed. Look at the children being cut into pieces, bombed into pieces. Like one of the children who was bombed 3 days ago in an apartment in Tel El Hawa, they still cannot find her body. She was a 3-year-old child. They don't know where the body is. Like it vanished. Can you imagine if that child was mine or yours, and you cannot find even the body of your dead child? Can you imagine that there are families under the ruin of their houses now, and we don't know who's alive and who's not? This is a 2021 genocide. We all need to stand for the right. I don't know what to say further, but this has been going on, and this escalation is going mad, and it's really extreme.
Why don't we open up the conversation a little bit and kind of go back and forth a little bit.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I think a lot of us, anybody who watches any of the Western coverage of this knows that it's completely biased, and you know, we have all of these tropes of clashes, and you know, this is an attack against Hamas. You know, when I think about that, this idea of an attack against Hamas, you know, I think of like when Al Qaeda attacked the U.S., the World Trade Center. As I just imagine, like the U.S. media, if it were to say, well, this is Al Qaeda is attacking the Republican Party because that was George Bush was the president at that time. And that would sound insane, but that's what the media does all the time with Hamas. Yes. It's a political party, and of course there's an armed wing, but you know, the U.S. has a military too. So, I mean, you know, I think we need to deconstruct a little bit of the media coverage. Has anybody seen any foreign journalists going to Gaza? I haven't seen any. Are there foreign journalists in Gaza now? There's none.
No. Currently, no. But the worst is that you are trying to tell the truth. But did you watch any of like the German or the French channels? Did you see what they are saying? They don't.
No. Tell us what.
No, I will tell you. Like for the past 4 days, more than 200 Palestinians were killed. What has been said here, okay, that Israel is being bombed by Hamas. Okay, let's try to deconstruct that. Palestine has been occupied for more than 73 years. Okay, Hamas is only like 28 or 30 years old. That's it. Okay. Before Hamas, all the genocides that happened, or the lands that were stolen, or the people that were killed. Why? There was no political party at that time. Why were we killed? Why were my grandparents killed? Why were they kicked out of their houses? Why don't my family, the rest of my family, they don't have IDs? They cannot go to their homes. They don't know how does Gaza look, or how does our houses look. This is from one point of view. From the other point of view, let's look about Israel, okay, and about Gaza Strip and Hamas, okay. Israel is the most advanced country in the world. This is something that no one can argue. It has the 4th most powerful army in the world, and this is well known. It's being supported by all over the world. They are paying for missiles and for rockets, and they are paying for weapons to kill innocent people. This is well known, okay? No one argues in this. But move to the next step. They have rockets costing more than $1 million per one. Just open YouTube, look at the IDF channel. Look, they are trying to sell their technology by showing how do they hit the Palestinian houses. They say that. Like Gantz, 2 days ago, Gantz stood. Gantz, he is the minister for the IDF forces, and he said, we will bomb houses. We will bomb buildings in Gaza. He did not say we will bomb Hamas. He did not say we will bomb the people who are attacking us. Come on, let's continue. Let's look at the technology again. Israel has the most advanced and most powerful defense system in the world. If you think that Hamas is bombing Israel, it's like like someone said in the US media before, it's like a 4-year-old child is hitting a 22 years old man who goes to the gym daily. Look at the numbers. Like, how many are being killed from each part? Let's just look from a human part and go back to politics. If you want to talk about parties, if we want to look about politics, Israel is saying that we want a two countries solution. Okay, so in 2006 there was an election. In that election, Hamas won the election, and then there was a war because why did you win the election? You cannot make your rule. Come on, guys, you're talking about a two countries solution, but you don't want someone to rule in their way. You don't want them to have their own judgment. You are controlling the borders. You are even controlling the water that we drink. They are controlling the air that we breathe.
Yeah.
So no, it is not. It's not about Hamas or about Fatah or about anyone else. It is about the land. It is about human beings being killed every day. It is about.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes.
I want to try to talk about the situation. I want to kind of zoom in on the situation in Gaza a little bit.
Yeah.
I think a lot of our followers probably agree with us, and we're not going to have to kind of convince them of, the just cause of Palestine. So I want to kind of, if maybe Ola, you can talk about the medical situation. What is the situation in the hospitals? I interviewed Dr. Mohammed Ziara, Shaimaa's brother, who's a doctor in Al-Shifa, the largest hospital in Gaza, and so where the most serious cases go. And it was a really sobering interview. He kind of told me that because of the siege, the Israeli siege and Egyptian, actually, both countries, that they keep on Gaza, that the medical supplies are very low, and it will get to a point very soon, or maybe it already is, where you'll have to perform surgeries without being able to give people anesthesia. And that's in addition to lacking other supplies. So, Ola, can you talk about the medical situation in Gaza right now? I don't know if she can hear us. Okay, maybe she can't hear us. You can hear me. You can hear me, Shaimaa?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you can hear me. Okay. Ola, I don't know why you can't hear you, but maybe you want to. I don't know if you want to leave and try again to come back in. Yeah, I mean, I
can weigh in from my conversations with my brother and things that we have discussed and what they've been saying about the situation, that there is, like, even prior to the start of the Israeli aggression on Gaza, the medical infrastructure was already suffering for years before, due to the Israeli blockade on Gaza and due to the previous Israeli aggressions and prevention of entry for medical support, medications, even updating the equipment that is there. And then to have that, and with the catastrophe that we've been experiencing with COVID as well, and to have the ICU at full capacity already, then add to that an Israeli aggression on an already suffering health system it's making it at the verge of collapse. And there was a statement by the Red Crescent in Gaza yesterday warning that the health system is at the verge of collapse, and the continuous bombing of Gaza is accelerating and exacerbating the deterioration of the system. And at the moment, with the really high and awful number of Palestinians being injured and killed and brought into the hospital, there is barely enough supplies. As you mentioned, Dan, the anesthesia that is used for patients now has to be rationed to that extent, because they have to choose which one is more serious to actually provide anesthesia for. That there are people with certain surgeries that would typically in normal circumstances need anesthesia would actually not be provided with it because there's someone who is more in need for that. And it's a terrible situation that no one should be going through. And it's time that we hold Israel accountable for the crimes that it is doing in Gaza. I want to see if Ola can speak up at the moment. Are you able to speak? Okay, maybe there are issues with the sound to that. Yeah,
she's technically on, but
yeah. I can see some of the people asking comments, and I want to give kind of a little bit of an informative historical background about what's happening here, just so that because on mainstream media we see kind of how the events are framed, and honestly, it's the way events have been framed for decades before. That it's not a religious conflict. It is not a religious conflict. This is not about religion. And this argument is only used to justify the crimes that have been happening. Palestine prior to 1948, which is the announcement of the Israeli occupation and the announcement of the so-called Israel, it was called Palestine, and people that are Jewish, people that are Christian, and people that are Muslim were living as Palestinians in Palestine. And then came the Zionist ethnic cleansing that is demanding to the erasure of a whole indigenous population in Palestine, and bringing Zionist mobs that want to erase our identity and establish a so-called state that is based on apartheid. So the argument saying that we were anti-Semitic or that it's about religion, that we don't want Jews to be with us in the country, these are lies, because Jewish people have been in Palestine as Palestinians, and everything was, people were living in harmony and peacefully. This is not about religion. We are not against Jews all around the world. We are simply against the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians, and regardless of their religion, and against the occupation that is perpetuating a state of apartheid on Palestinians for more than 73 years. And to see that the extreme support, military support that the Israeli occupation gets from countries like the US and Europe and everywhere, and to see the billions of dollars that are being provided there on a yearly basis so that these weapons can be used to bomb civilians in Gaza and to bomb and to harm and kill people in the West Bank and in Jerusalem, and use them to threaten and to arm even settlers. Israeli settlers are constantly armed, and they are waging attacks against Palestinians in the West Bank and in Jerusalem with the protection of the Israeli police and the Israeli army. So the argument that this is a religious conflict is only deterring the conversation from talking about an apartheid state and occupation and indigenous people, indigenous Palestinians that are being threatened every day and living under apartheid in oppressive circumstances. And it's not about religion, it's not about Muslims. And when we're talking about a whole occupation that is funded, well armed, bombing civilians and Palestinians, and then you're demanding, you're excusing that because there are resistance rockets that are coming out. First, demand Israel to end its occupation of Palestine, and then we will not try to resist. When we are free, we won't have to resort to resistance. But if you are funding occupation, they're having the latest tech in weaponry, you cannot deny the Palestinians the right to defend themselves.
Why don't we kind of talk about, there was this, basically the Israelis yesterday said, I wanted to try to kind of talk about, the current events and current situation more than kind of like broader, the broader subjects. I think, like I said, I think a lot of our followers are gonna, already pretty much on board. We're preaching to the choir a little bit. I want to kind of talk about the assault yesterday and the Israeli military and its basically propagandists, the state journalists in Israel, were saying that there was going to be an invasion, that the Israeli army was going to invade, and then this suddenly didn't happen. There was this massive bombing, and then it didn't happen. And so I look at, in particular, it seems like to me that it's a psychological warfare tactic. But it also kind of shows weakness to me, because I think as all of us know, and maybe somebody wants to discuss this. In 2014, when the Israelis invaded, I think, Ola, are you back with us? Can you hear us now?
I hope that you hear me now.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
Great. So
Great.
in 2014, when the Israelis did invade, there were very intense. I mean, I think the term clashes is fair at that point. When you have Israeli soldiers versus the resistance forces, it's in combat. Then the term clashes. There is, I don't know how you all think about that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's in direct combat. And the Israelis lost. I mean, they really were dealt a bloody nose. For such a extremely powerful military, they weren't able to defeat the Palestinian, the armed resistance forces, Al-Qassam, particularly in the neighborhood of Shaimaa. And as soon as they started taking really heavy losses, they pulled back. The army pulled their soldiers back, and then they started firing huge amounts of artillery and airstrikes onto Shaimaa, this neighborhood in eastern Gaza that had been very well prepared by the armed resistance forces with all, tunnels and traps and all kinds of things, knowing that, this was an inevitable invasion. And so it seems to me that that's really stuck in the memory of the Israelis. And so it's something of a sign of weakness that they are not invading. So I'm curious, maybe what you all think.
Yeah, I would like to add something. It's not. It wasn't just Shaimaa. Like in 2011, they tried to invade Jabalia camp for 1 week. Yes, North Gaza. Okay, it's known that it is the most crowded camp in Gaza Strip. It was a 1 week attack. They tried to invade it, but they couldn't. It wasn't just because of the resistance. It was because Jabalia is very crowded. The roads are very narrow, and people themselves, they started throwing themselves in front of the Israeli forces to prevent them from going further. And then there was more than 100 people who died in Jabalia during that week, and the Israeli forces had to go back. That is also a loss for them. But then if you look at what really happened, like currently I am too outside Gaza, but I can address the medical issue later for you as a doctor. I worked in the previous 2 wars in Gaza, and my uncles are doctors currently in Gaza, one in North Gaza and the other in the Central Hospital, Al Shifa. Okay. But what happened yesterday, that around 10 p.m. the Israeli journalists starting saying that on behalf of the IDF, they were invading north of Gaza. They started bombing, and then suddenly around 2 a.m. after heavily striking Gaza, they said, no, we are not bombing. So we felt like it was a psychological war, and it really, as you said, it will cause more casualties for them if they try to go an actual invasion. In contrast to hitting Gaza from the sky, from the sea, they would be literally away. But if they try to have an actual invasion, they will be facing the resistant forces face to face, and they will be facing buildings and people and everything face to face. This will cause, as I recall, they have an institute in Tulkarm for the IDF forces. It's for helping the soldiers psychologically, because they too fear having an invasion, an actual invasion. So it is a psychological war of both the Palestinians, because it's really scary to have an invasion. I witnessed several invasions before, and I know how scary it is. And for the Israeli forces, as they fear on behalf of their lives. So yes, it is a loss for all parties,
right
not
now
just for.
of intensive consecutive bombing north of Gaza at the
Yeah,
moment.
it's time.
Right
It's about time. It's 11 or midnight by
now,
Gaza
Yeah.
time.
to make
Yes,
the
it's time
bombing
to lighten up the sky of Gaza.
to terrorize civilians of Gaza.
I
Yes.
want to add something on the invasion of Gaza,
Yeah.
if I may, that they are targeting the internal Palestinian impunity. They are targeting the resilience of people in Gaza. If you are trying to have a flashback from what happened in Shijaiya in 2014 or from the north, people will be like escaping from their houses. They will flee to outside of Shijaiya and north area, and they will be crowding in Unruwa school inside the middle of Gaza. As I mentioned, there is no safer place in Gaza. One of the most safer place in Gaza was considered the Rimal area, which contains the main shopping and
Completely
the main mall
being
inside
bombed
Gaza.
now.
This is the center of bombardment of Israeli. All the towers or the
Are there
civilian.
images that we can show? Is it on Twitter or anything? Because we can show it. I mean, right here, I just pulled up the tweet from the Israeli military saying IDF. This is from last night, and ground troops. So this is part of the psychological operation. I mean, I don't think they usually would announce that.
Yes.
And it's so I think it's pretty clear that it was some kind of trick to get people really worried. So yeah, I mean, is anybody seeing footage we can show this bombing in northern Gaza? Does anyone is it on Twitter or anything like that?
Yeah, so I think like it's a bit too early to get any footage up here.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was just a few minutes ago, like 2 to 3 minutes ago,
Yeah.
it was reported.
Or if
Anything
if
else?
anything's going around WhatsApp or anything like that, I can show that too. But yeah, as anything comes in, then we'll be sure to show it.
Can I go back to the medical issue in Gaza?
Yes, please feel free.
Yes. Okay. As we all said before, that Gaza is already under siege, and we were going into an extreme shortage of medical supplies, drugs, and many of the machines that we use for helping, for resuscitation or for anesthesia, or even like drains and vacuums. We don't have that kind of luxury, actually. And if you remember or still remember, the whole world is running through a pandemic. At the start of the pandemic, of Corona pandemic in Gaza, we started calculating how many ICU beds we have. There were only around 120 beds, including the NICU beds. So can you imagine now, during this attack, how many beds do we really need? So as a start for the intensive care units, we have an extreme shortage. And as Shaimaa said, the doctors have to select whom to use anesthesia with, whom to like help to the max and who's not. Do you know what this is called? This is called war medicine. When we try to triage people into people, that if we help this person, he might be still alive like for 1 day or two, and if we don't help this one, it will be even. It's the same. So this is a crisis. And for the people, like I know a vascular surgeon who lives in the middle of Gaza but works in a Shifa hospital. He cannot drive his car to the hospital. He works on foot. And when I asked him about this situation, because his specialty to work to prevent amputation of upper and lower limbs by reconnecting them, he said, no, dear, we do not see these kinds of injuries because people come to the hospital in parts that we cannot reconnect again together. So we only just try to save lives, not anything else. Yeah, so it is worse than you can imagine. And we have a unit for kidney dialysis, for renal dialysis at the Shifa hospital. This unit serves, I don't know, like more than 500 people with renal failure. If you know what renal failure means, it means that your kidneys are shut down and they don't work anymore. They do not filter your body. These people, including children and young adults who need dialysis, currently they cannot go to the hospital to go for dialysis. Yesterday I talked to 2 of them and they were suffering and they don't know what to do. So you are sending not just the people being injured by the Israeli soldiers to death. No, you are sending other patients to death. And
Adding to that,
I have to mention, yes, I have to mention just another thing, that we send the oncology patients, people with cancer, to West Bank and to Jerusalem for treatment in Al-Muttala Ascension Hospital and in Najah Hospital in Nablus. Currently, we cannot send any of these patients there. And this is another catastrophe. You know that day by day, cancer patients, their conditions gets worse if they do not receive their treatment. So on all levels, the medical part of Palestine was already crashed, and now we are looking at a total loss. I know that doctors, Ala, one of them, is doing their best to help, but it is really out of their hands. And I witnessed that. I worked in 2 wars before.
I want to comment on the COVID situation because, as you all know, that the pandemic hit Gaza in August 2020, and people in Gaza, Ministry of Health was doing its best to try to contain this pandemic in Gaza. Some of MOH hospitals have been evacuated, and they make it the COVID focal hospital. So all departments were reallocated in other hospitals, and there have been, let's say, increasing the bed capacity and the ICU bed capacity to receive COVID patients. Now, in the moment, first patient of COVID who are not diagnosed or are starting to have some symptoms, they don't know where to go because the hospitals are already overstretched. The testing capacity of Palestinian MOH is really decreased. The roads to the hospital and the primary health clinic is already blocked. People don't feel safe to go and to be tested. This will add another layer to the life of Palestinians. The cases which will go to hospital will be eventually mostly critical cases, the cases which will die, or maybe they will not have an ICU bed to treat them at this moment. The health workers in hospitals are really overstretched. They have been everywhere. They are treating COVID. They are treating trauma cases. Not to forget the Great March of Return, which happened in 2018. People are still suffering till this moment because like more than 6,000 people were seriously injured, and they are treating now for limb reconstructive surgery, for amputation. They are treated for many psychological and medical problems. So all MOH departments are really overwhelmed. They are under stress. The medical supply and the consumables, medication are in short for a long period, like more than 17 years now. Gaza is suffering from shortage of medication and supply. They depend on donation from outside. They are dependent on donation from the international organization. Now, with the blockage of areas and the blockage of all borders to Gaza, which happened since day one from this escalation on Gaza, even international organization, all the humanitarian organization, they cannot enter anything, even convoys from outside, medical supplies, medical people
Yes.
who want to come to help and support the Ministry of Health hospitals. They cannot come inside Gaza. They cannot put like a bin. It cannot enter Gaza. All the international organizations are calling to open these borders and to let the supplies, medical supply, come in to support people in the hospital. They are working with the current capacity that they have, but we know for sure in 1 to 2 days, these capacities will be broken and the hospital will be collapsed. I hope not to see this. I hope this escalation will come to an end before we are witnessing a huge massacres in Gaza
Yes.
in all aspects.
Why don't we? I think we should talk about what's happening in the 48 and the in Lebanon and Jordan too. There's been basically Israeli Zionist fascist mobs attacking Palestinians in cities where they were not fully ethnically cleansed from in 1948, and there have been settlers getting bussed in to some of these cities, and so there's been some Palestinians fighting back too. I mean, there's a really horrifying video. Maybe I can show it actually. Let me pull it up. But of a Palestinian being beaten in the streets, dragged from his car by a mob, and I mean, it's they call it a lynching even on Israeli TV, and it's really what it is. And the Netanyahu has said that that the border police, what he calls the border police, which is just the military, is a branch of the military, is being sent in to quell these, basically to attack Palestinians with the Israeli mobs. I mean, he said they have full backing, meaning they can do whatever they want. They can kill.
As we speak, there are reports from Lod City at the moment that there are Palestinians trapped inside the mosque, and there are armed Israeli settlers right outside attacking them with arms. Settlers, not even the Israeli army or police forces. They're currently attacking them under the protection of the Israeli police.
Yeah.
So there are Palestinians trapped inside the mosque, and they're attacking them at the moment.
Let me show right now. I'm going to show this video from yesterday of of two Israelis beating another an Israeli journalist with a camera. Let me show this video. So these are the right-wing Israeli mobs beating a guy for a camera. So apparently those guys were arrested, but this is Zionism. This is like Jew on Jew violence. Not only. I mean, obviously most of the violence is targeted against Palestinians, but even the Israeli right also hates Jews who they see as left wing or something like that. So. And I mean, I've been in mobs like that. I've been threatened by kinds of people, and police don't care kind of thing. In 2014, before I was able to come into Gaza, I was in Tel Aviv in these right-wing mobs where they chant Arabs, and it's actually a really terrifying experience, because if you have a camera, they hate you. They see you as an enemy, that you're documenting what they're doing. I was at another right-wing rally where they were chanting "death to journalists." So very, very extreme stuff. Let me just try to find this video of this.
Yeah, they keep chanting death for Arabs, and this is really scaring. Like a friend a friend in Haifa, before 2 hours, she said that the gangs are running through the neighborhoods in the protection of the police, and trying to horrify the Palestinian people who are still living in Haifa. Yesterday, they arrested many of the young men there. One of them, if you know, there is a Palestinian band called 47 Soul. One of the singers is called Wala Spade. Wala Spade yesterday was arrested by the Israeli soldiers and the Israeli police forces in Haifa, along with too many other young men. This also, as we speak now, there is a small village called Kafr Kunna. Kafr Kunna is being heavily attacked by the soldiers, and one of the old men was arrested earlier. And this has been going on not just in Lod, it has been going on for the past 2 days in too many cities. This did not happen before, actually, in such a strong way. It's like, as you said, it's like street war, or gangs attacking people.
But I mean, I think it's just, fascist Israeli Zionist mobs.
Yes.
And I mean, people are calling them Jewish mobs, which is fair. But I think it's important to point out that they're not acting out of it makes it sound like it's a religious thing. This is not. They're not acting out of Jewish faith. They're acting out of national. So I think it's important to call them Zionist mobs, and this is just like Israel is the Zionist project. It's not the Jewish project. So anyway,
sure.
Let me show this video. This is from Bat Yam, which is outside of Tel Aviv. Of this fascist mob attacking a Palestinian, dragging him out of his car, and this was broadcast live on Israeli television.
Yeah, they are proud of that.
The video is lagging a little bit.
It's lagging?
Yeah, it's not playing smoothly on. I'm not sure.
I mean, I don't know if there's anything I can do about that. I mean, I can pause it a little, try to get it to load, but.
I have a comment on this reaction by the Israeli mobs against the people in the 1948 land. They always try to sell their point of view as they are facing terrorists, Hamas terrorist army in Gaza, and they are always bombing Gaza because they are facing terrorists.
So watch this. Watch this. You have a guy going to tell the police. He's going to the police to explain to them what's happening. You see the police over here standing by and doing nothing, and they're not interested. So they're basically protecting this mob.
Speaking of police, I actually just shared a video where the police themselves, there was a Palestinian just riding his bike, passing by, and they literally snatched him. The Israeli police themselves snatched him to the ground and started assaulting him. If you can find the video, I shared.
So here is this guy telling them what's happening, and they're just, not interested. And then we have the split screen of the guy going to the police to tell them what's happening, and then the mob coming. I don't know if this Palestinian who they assaulted survived or not. But I mean, that pretty much says it all right there. Video of what's happening in Israeli society. Where basically you have the lynch mob on the street, and then you have the lynch mob in the airplanes with bunker buster bombs taking out bombing people in their homes while they sleep and taking out entire towers. So I think the real difference between these two groups is one is wearing a uniform and is in F-16s and artillery tanks, and the other is just guys on the street. But it's the same. I mean, all of those guys pretty much are future or former soldiers, or maybe current soldiers, who are partaking in that lynch mob. So I see people are saying
in Sheikh Jarrah as well. Sorry to interrupt, but to that point, we are actually seeing the armed Israeli settlers able to enter the neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah, even the ones that do not really live there, and the Palestinians that are completely unarmed, that are there to peacefully protest, are being prevented from entering, and the Israeli police is there allowing the settlers who have guns and machine guns on their backs to enter and harass the Palestinians and indigenous residents of Palestine there, while leaving the settlers unprotected. You can see the police harassing the Palestinians as well. They have violently arrested several of them. They are taking orders from armed settlers who are there telling them, go catch this Palestinian, go catch that Palestinian, and then they attack them brutally with the protection and under the cover of Israeli police.
Shaimaa, I don't know if you hear me now.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. Adding to what you mentioned, that the Israeli settlers are giving order to the policemen. One of the people in Jerusalem, he said that I was arrested because one of the settlers have asked the policeman to arrest him because he was going live on Instagram stream, and they were following him, and because he already, like, he was very transparent in covering the truth and what is the Israeli settlers have been doing inside Al-Aqsa Mosque or in Sheikh Jarrah. So he have been arrested and he was beaten because he's an social media activist based on orders from the settlers themselves.
Yeah, I mean, there's just shocking footage all over the place, and you just see that, there's the kind of official, there's the official state apparatus, and then you have kind of what are essentially, paramilitaries, you could call them, that are unofficial, but have the blessing of the state, all working together for the same goal and the same ideology. Maybe, I don't know, if there's any footage of that, of what you were describing, we can show that. I don't know if any footage is coming up. I don't know if there's any footage from, new footage from Gaza that maybe we can show.
We just want more details on the recent attacks on north of Gaza at the moment. They targeted two civilian houses north of Gaza, in Jabalia and Beit Lahia, that we have previously mentioned are one of the most crowded refugee camps in Gaza Strip. There are reports that there are casualties and possibly Palestinians killed in these attacks. I don't have any footage of it yet, but the news of the casualties are coming in. If anything else comes in, I'll send it your way.
Okay. All right. Well, that's going to leave us. Thank you very much for joining us, Wala, and we'll definitely do it again and stay in touch. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you, Eddie, for what you're doing. Thank you, Shaimaa. Thank you, Ola. May God bless you all, and plus our beloved land. May this attack and escalation end soon with the least losses for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
I have one story to tell you from today's aggression over Gaza.
Okay.
Maybe you hear sometimes that the Israeli forces are calling people to evacuate some towers or some places. It is part of their propaganda that they are acting as a human being and they are really give a threat for people before they bomb the whole tower that they are living in. One of my friends, he received a call by his name. They called him Dr. something. You have like 15 minutes to talk to all your neighborhood, to tell everyone to evacuate their houses because we are gonna strike heavily your neighborhood because there is a police station next to them. It's a police station. It's not a military station. It's nothing something jihadi or there is any training of any kind. It's a police station in the middle of Gaza, and my friend was receiving the call, and I don't imagine how heavy it is to go to everyone from your neighbors or your family to say you have 15 minutes to evacuate your houses now, and in this situation you are trying to calm yourself and to calm your family, and then to go with this horrific news to everyone else. After 15 minutes of this notice, the area was bombed, many houses have been destroyed. Even me, I'm living like 1 kilometer away, even we have some broken glasses inside our house. So it's really horrible. It's really horrible that this is a myth that they are targeting military places, or they are targeting Hamas.
If that claim is correct, then, and if your target is to destroy militants, then why are you calling the people there to leave? I mean, it's a fallacy in of itself. Like, if you're saying that these are fighters that are killing allegedly like your people, then why are you calling them and telling them, oh, we're gonna bomb your house? They willingly know that these are civilians and that they could possibly kill them and kill those in the neighbors like behind them and in the same neighborhood, and you're telling them to leave. At the same time, you're justifying your actions by saying, oh, we're only targeting. These are blatant propaganda by Israel. And the whole idea that, you know, trying to frame it of like giving a warning rocket to a house, because saying that, oh, we are actually a moral army and we tell people to leave their house before we bomb it. First of all, the whole concept of a warning rocket, which by Israel is called a knock on the roof, it is 1,000,000 times more than a knock on the roof. And actually in 2014, there were 3 kids who were playing on the roof of their house who were killed by this knock on the roof rocket that Israeli army claims to use to just to warn people or Palestinians about the bombing of their house. There were 3 kids killed when that rocket fell on the roof. And then there's a whole other dimension of you knowing that this is a house of civilians and you are destroying their actual home. How do you justify that? What's your rationale for it? This is, I mean, even the loss of house is still problematic. There are whole neighborhoods that were razed to the ground, like aggression after aggression, including the bombing that happened last night. Many have lost their lives and many have completely lost their homes and became homeless. The multiple towers that were targeted over the past few days in Gaza, these are towers that are hosting hundreds of families. So even if these families manage to evacuate within the 10 minutes or less that are given to them, they basically just take all they can take from like important documents and some savings that they have, and they leave immediately. And then you have suddenly hundreds of families homeless in an already overcrowded city that has been suffering from bombing and aggression for years. And somehow that is morally justified and just. And this needs to be talked about more. Just because some civilians managed to leave, it doesn't make that aggression okay. It's still a terrorist action.
Not to forget that the towers that have been demolished in 2014, they are still not constructed till this moment. So people who have been displaced from Shujaiya, from Beit Hanun in the north, from their towers which have been hit in the last days of the last war, they are still not back to their home houses. They are not still back to their original places where they used to live. They are not killing people only, they are killing the souls, they are killing dreams, they are killing every human being in Gaza. Even without
let me say this, when I was in Gaza in 2014, of course, you know, you're sure both of you remember this very well, on the last night before the final ceasefire, and actually when the ceasefire had already been announced and it was imminent, that is when Israel started attacking the towers. They took out the Al-Basha tower, where there was a lot of media, and the Italian compound, which was a huge residential building, and one more, maybe. Do you two remember? But there was a third one they took out. No. I think there was.
There was. I can't remember the name specifically, but I remember it happened.
Well, so they took out 3 huge towers, 3 of the taller towers in Gaza. And, like I said, after the ceasefire had already been announced. And I mean, to me, it was very clear that it was a message to Gaza that if they, dare resist again, then that's basically where the attack will pick up. They'll start wiping out towers. And that's what I said, and that's what I wrote at the time in my reporting. And I mean, obviously I was proven right in the worst way possible, where the very beginning of this mega assault, they took out 3 of the biggest towers, three huge towers in Gaza, including the Al Sharouk Tower, where I spent months living in that tower, actually. And this is also where the biggest media tower it was the biggest media tower in Gaza, where not only international media, I know RT worked out of there. I believe, I don't know if either of you know, did Al Jazeera operate out of the Sharouk Tower?
I have seen Al Jazeera reporting that their journalists were actually on the top of the roof taking footage when they received the warning call to evacuate. So that they were actually working up there. And when we were seeing the live footage of the tower right before it was being bombed, the setup of the journalists, including the lights, were actually still there working, because had to rush immediately. They even left their equipment behind. And by the way, that hit, actually, that attack touches home for me, because my uncle has his engineering office with his sons there, and it was completely destroyed. They also owned an apartment in that same tower, and they lost everything in just one night. And let's keep in mind that even after this aggression is over, Israel, like it did before, they will continue to prevent any construction material from entering Gaza Strip. So even if they announce a ceasefire, it does not mean that the Israeli occupation aggression stops. There are buildings that were bombed in 2008 and 2009, aggression on Gaza by Israel, that have not yet been rebuilt. And the same thing happened again in 2012 aggression, and again in 2014, and none of these buildings have been rebuilt, and the reconstruction materials are not allowed in. So simply just because Gaza disappears off of the news after a ceasefire is reached, it does not mean that the aggression, Israeli occupation aggression, is actually stopped.
Right. I mean, I remember when I was, you can see in my documentary, Killing Gaza, for anyone who was watching it, I showed this. I mean, I most of the time I was there was after the ceasefire. And, I show people through the winter when it gets, actually, even though it's the Mediterranean, but it gets extremely cold. And especially for people who don't have a roof over their heads, who are stuck living in literal shipping containers, where there were neighborhoods wiped out, 50, 60 homes in one area, wiped out, reduced to rubble, and all of the people who survived were living in actual shipping containers in extremely dangerous conditions. And this went on for a very long time, and I don't know where these people are living now. I have no idea. Certainly, they haven't been able to really rebuild their home. I mean, I remember going to areas of Hosea and Shujaiya and seeing that. The rebuilding that was done, it reminded me more of like kind of, when like if an angry kid were to kick an anthill, then the ants kind of build it back the best they can. But this is the power dynamic, and it's not really truly rebuilt. It's like any of the rubble is all reused. One of the really kind of things that's so seared into my memory with the aftermath of 2014 is seeing crews of young men digging through the rubble for any kind of rebar, any construction materials that they could reuse, anything. I mean, where, when you, in any normal situation, this would, of course, there is no normal situation like that, but, you would expect that there would be some kind of humanitarian aid or something, that people would be allowed to rebuild their homes, the civilians, this kind of thing. But no, the rebar, all of the concrete, all of the rubble is reused to be able to build anything for people to survive in. So and all done by hand. So I mean, it's just unbelievable to see this stuff, and you know, I mean, I don't want to keep pushing my documentary, telling people to watch it, but you can see the stuff that we're describing in Killing Gaza.
Like very sarcastic moment that I remember now, that the Italian tower, which have been demolished in 2014, they got fund just to rebuild it just 1 month ago. So before we get the fund to rebuild the tower, there are like 5 or 6 towers already demolished now. This can give you an idea of the people's life. Even without escalation, even without aggression on Gaza, Gaza has been living in siege under Israeli-Egyptian siege for 17 years now. It's been there since 2007, and the poverty rate is really the highest among the Mediterranean area. I think 60% of the population are really extremely poor, according to the UN definition of poverty. And 64% of the population in Gaza, they are unemployed. We have people who have higher degrees, master degrees, and they are well-trained, well-educated, but they cannot have any opportunity to work. Even the people who are working in Gaza, they have only 40% of their salaries paid by the end of the month. People are living on donation. People are living on parcels that is provided from the UN and the UNRWA, different agency, and then the NGOs. Adding to this, the COVID situation, because people here are working on daily basis. Like if you work today, you will have an income. If you don't work, you don't have nothing. During COVID, because of long lockdowns, which have been forced here to try to contain the pandemic, people don't have good income.
Sorry about that. Maybe we can. Sorry to interrupt you. We just got some new footage from Gaza. Maybe we can show. This is from the recent bombing in the north of Gaza. I have not seen it, so this could be extremely graphic. I have no idea, but let's take a look. And hopefully the lag is not too bad. I know there's a lag. I think it's just inevitable with what's happening. So
it's not clear.
Yeah, it's not exactly clear what's going on. I mean, it sounds like some kind of bombing, but it's not 100% clear what's going on. But
it's the sound of the bombing in the background. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, I think maybe we should wrap up the live stream for now. And we can, maybe do again later, just see how things develop. So thank you very much, Ola and Shaimaa, for doing this with me, and all of our viewers for joining us. And we'll just continue to update as much as we can. I'll be tweeting, and follow Shaimaa Ziara. What's your Twitter handle, Shaimaa?
It's Shaimaa Ziara, SHAIMAZIARA.
Okay, so follow her on Twitter, and we'll just keep updating everything we can.
Thank you so much for joining us, and keep spreading the word. Every little action matters. Do not underestimate how much you can have an impact on what's happening in Palestine. So keep the word out.
Definitely, and everyone should be looking for protests to go to. There are protests all over the world, and so everyone can do their part. So
contact your MPs, contact your representative, put pressure on your governments to take action to stop the occupation of Palestine.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.